Welcome to Yibo'S Jean universe. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share this video with your friends. The set vibrated with the controlled chaos of a high-octane action sequence. Explosions were precisely timed, stunt doubles moved with practiced grace, and the air crackled with anticipation. Wang Yibo, harnessed to wires for a mid-air combat scene, was a vortex of focused energy. His character, a rogue assassin, plunged through a holographic cityscape, every move sharp, precise, utterly convincing. Shiao Jean watched from the monitors, a knot of familiar concern tightening in his stomach. He knew the risks, but more than that, he knew the invisible war Yibo constantly waged within himself against the world's sensory overload, the echo syndrome that made his reality a constant hum of amplified perceptions. "Action!" the director roared. Yibo launched himself forward, the wires pulling him through a simulated explosion. A controlled detonation went off, a concussive blast of air and sound. But then, a rogue piece of debris, a shard of plastic from a collapsing prop, flew off course, a tiny dark blur against the controlled chaos. It struck Yibo's temple, a sharp, unexpected impact. For Wang Yibo, the world didn't just go black. It shattered. The pain was a blinding, white-hot nova, but it was secondary to the immediate, terrifying feedback loop. His echo syndrome roared to life, unfiltered, uncontained. The single, sharp impact on his temple exploded into a million simultaneous impacts across his entire being. He felt every single grain of dust stirred by the explosion, heard the precise frequency of every air molecule vibrating, tasted the metallic tang of the distant prop blood on the floor. The world became a symphony of excruciating detail, each sensation amplified 1,000-fold. His vision exploded into a blinding kaleidoscope of raw data. The set, the crew, the lights, all dissolved into pulsating grids of pure energy, shimmering wavelengths, and vibrating particles. He saw the very air as a swirling vortex of light and shadow, felt the microscopic currents of air flowing around his skin, heard the silent, internal processes of every person within a 100-meter radius, the rapid pulse of a technician's heart, the silent worry of a stunt coordinator, the anxious twitch of a director's eyebrow, each sensation screaming in his mind. The wires holding him became chains of pure agony, transmitting the vibrations of the entire building directly into his bones. He was no longer seeing reality. He was experiencing its raw, terrifying essence, a mind-blowing descent into the true nature of existence. On set, the chaos had gone strangely silent. Yibo hung motionless on his wires, a single thin stream of blood tracing a path down his temple. The crew rushed forward, shouting. But then, an impossible phenomenon began. The very air around Yibo began to flicker like a broken projection. The vibrant set pieces, the ruined cityscape, the futuristic vehicles, began to subtly ripple and distort. A distant building prop, designed to look solid, momentarily dissolved into a shimmering, translucent outline before snapping back. The stage lights above them flickered erratically, casting elongated, dancing shadows that stretched and compressed with impossible speed. The crew felt it. A sudden, inexplicable surge of disjointed emotions washed over them. A cameraman, mid-shout, felt a wave of profound existential dread, then a fleeting, overwhelming joy, then a piercing, unidentifiable nostalgia, all in a few terrifying seconds. A stuntman felt his own limbs momentarily twist, becoming impossibly long and thin, before snapping back to normal, leaving him trembling. The director's voice, sharp with urgency, distorted into a slow, guttural growl, then reversed itself, playing backwards, a terrifying cacophony of surreal sounds. The entire set had become a physical manifestation of Yibo's fractured perception, a mind-blowing bleed-through of his raw, unfiltered echo syndrome, turning their shared reality into a living, unpredictable nightmare. Shiao Jean, who had seen the subtle shift, the telltale shimmer, knew instantly. This wasn't just an injury. This was Yibo's power, uncontrolled, unshielded, tearing at the seams of reality itself. He pushed through the bewildered, disoriented crew, ignoring their shouts and the strange sensory onslaught. He reached Yibo, who hung limp, his eyes wide and unfocused, bleeding from the small wound. "Yibo!" Jean yelled, his voice cutting through the auditory chaos, though even to him, it sounded strangely warped, like a melody played underwater. He ignored the flickering illusions around them, the distorting faces of the crew, the ground that pulsed beneath his feet. He focused solely on Yibo, on the raw, beautiful soul he knew. He reached up, his hands carefully touching Yibo's face, ignoring the blood. He channeled his own boundless empathy, his profound calming presence, not to block the echoes, but to absorb them, to filter the chaotic torrent. He pressed his forehead against Yibo'S, a silent act of communion. For Yibo, the screaming symphony of sensations, the kaleidoscope of raw data, momentarily intensified, then began to coalesce. The thousand voices in his head softened, merging into a single profound hum, Jean's presence. The light and sound that had bombarded him began to form coherent patterns, shapes that were still alien, but no longer terrifyingly random. He saw not just lines of energy, but the gentle, comforting flow of Jean's own life force, weaving through his chaotic perceptions like a golden thread. He felt the cold shock of his own pain, but it was now cushioned by a wave of pure, unwavering love emanating from Jean, absorbing the sharp edges. Outside Yibo'S internal world, on the set, the chaos began to recede. The flickering props solidified, their forms returning to normal. The light stabilized, the dancing shadows vanished. The crew blinked, shaking their heads, a profound sense of disorientation lingering, but the immediate mind-bending terror was gone. The emotional surges dissipated, leaving them with only a lingering sense of unidentifiable awe. Finally, Yibo'S eyes, which had been unfocused, found Jean's. A flicker of recognition passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of the battle fought and won. The world was still a precarious place for Yibo, the hum of the echo syndrome a constant presence. But now, it was contained, no longer threatening to unravel everything. Medical personnel, wide-eyed and bewildered, finally reached them. Yibo slumped against Jean, exhaustion washing over him. The director stared at the damaged set, then at the two men, a dawning, terrifying realization in his eyes. He hadn't just witnessed an accident, he had witnessed a glimpse of a power beyond comprehension. The injury was real, the blood undeniable. But what had happened in those few seconds was something no medical textbook, no cinematic effect, could ever explain. The world, Yibo knew, was only just beginning to truly understand the nature of his echo syndrome, and the profound, beautiful chaos it could unleash and contain. Stay tuned to Yibo Jean Universe for updates, exclusive breakdowns, and emotional reactions as the story unfolds. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because this miracle might just be real. The ambulance sirens were a distant, jarring echo as Wang Yibo was whisked away to a private medical suite. He was physically fine, the small gash on his temple already clotting. But inside, his world was still reverberating. The controlled chaos of the set, the sudden pain, the unchecked flood of a million sensations, it had shattered the delicate filter he had built over a lifetime. He sat on the sterile bed, his hand still clutched in Shiao Jean's, feeling the profound, reassuring calm of Jean's presence slowly knit his fractured perception back together. "It's like a dam broke," Yibo murmured, his voice a low, raw whisper. "I wasn't fighting it anymore. I just felt everything." Jean simply squeezed his hand, a silent acknowledgement of the terrifying beauty Yibo had experienced. But it was more than an experience. In that brief, terrifying moment of uncontained power, something had changed. The echoes were no longer just a burden to be contained. They were a profound, creative force. Yibo, for the first time, felt he could interact with them. He and Jean, with a shared, silent understanding, decided to test this new, frightening ability. They sat in the quiet, empty suite. Yibo closed his eyes, and instead of pushing against the rising tide of sensation, he allowed a single clear thought to form, a memory. A quiet afternoon in the park, years ago, where they had first felt their bond solidify. With Jean's guiding presence as an anchor, he didn't just recall the memory. A shimmering, translucent energy flowed from his fingertips, coalescing into a three-dimensional, living landscape of that very park. The grass was a soft, glowing green, the tree leaves rustled with a silent, ethereal hum, and a perfect, impossibly still image of their younger selves sat on a bench, a beautiful, mind-blowing testament to a reality pulled from the past and made real. It was a profound realization. The echoes were not just chaos, they were the raw building blocks of their shared reality. Yibo'S echo syndrome, a curse he had borne his entire life, was in fact a key to creation. He could, with Jean's guidance and his own boundless will, weave a universe from the invisible fabric of memory and emotion. But their newfound purpose was quickly overshadowed by the world's reaction to the accident. News of the incident had spread like wildfire, but something was terribly, mind-blowingly wrong. The news reports were a chaotic, fragmented mess. One major news outlet reported the set collapsed due to a structural failure. Another reported a small, contained fire. A third claimed Yibo had simply fainted from heat exhaustion. The public's collective perception, still reeling from the shock of the event, had been subtly but profoundly fractured by the residual echoes of Yibo's uncontained outburst. The world was a mess of conflicting stories, a swirling maelstrom of discordant information that had no single, coherent reality. "They can't see the truth," Jean said, his voice laced with concern as he scrolled through the fragmented news reports. "The echoes. They've twisted everything." Yibo looked at the screen, a fresh wave of responsibility washing over him. He had inadvertently caused this chaos. But now, with his newfound understanding, he knew he could fix it. He took Jean's hand, a silent promise passing between them. "We can't just fix it," Yibo said, his voice filled with a quiet, resolute purpose. "We can give them something better." The most profound, mind-blowing act of all was a silent one. They went to a private, secure location, away from prying eyes and cameras. Yibo sat down, closing his eyes, and with Jean's hand on his shoulder, his gentle touch a profound guide, he channeled his energy not to contain, but to consciously, purposefully release a single clear, benevolent echo to the world. It wasn't a memory or a vision. It was a single, pure thought: peace. A feeling of profound calm and unity. A universal, undeniable truth. On phones, televisions, and computers across the globe, the fragmented news reports, the chaotic gossip, and the discordant rumors began to subtly, silently shift. The screens didn't flash or change dramatically. Instead, the words themselves seemed to settle, their contradictory narratives dissolving. A single unified and serene narrative began to form, a profound, unifying truth that was felt by all. The tension in the world, in every home, in every city, that had been caused by the chaotic news, dissipated, replaced by a sense of inexplicable calm and a collective, unified understanding. It was a profound, mind-blowing act of global-scale reality manipulation, a direct consequence of their love and his newfound control, a silent wave of peace that had been sent to the world. Yibo's injury had not been a setback. It had been a catalyst, a moment that had shattered the dam and revealed the boundless, beautiful power he held. He was no longer just a performer, an artist. He was a force of nature, a creator of peace, a shepherd of truth. His echo syndrome was not a curse. It was a gift, and with Jean by his side, they were ready to shape not just their own reality, but the very world itself.